All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And time of the week, another hump day with no one other than the man, the myth, the legend, the baron of gold, the silver. What is that? What else does he say, Bix? Help me out here.
You know, let's go for a safe and sane talk today, and with no gorilla aspects. And yes, it's much more boring, but maybe we could talk about different stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it is Hump Day with Bix Weir, and I will be hosting today. The gorilla has not had enough coffee and looking for some bananas out there, so he's occupied this afternoon. But I'll be riding shotgun with Bix. So, and I know that there's a lot to discuss, Bix. So let's jump right into it.
I heard it was mating season for the gorilla.
It could be. I think I read that as well. So we'll see what comes about that.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. So what is on your radar?
Oh man, crypto city, crypto. Obviously a lot of talk, a lot of action, a lot of the crypto deniers are out putting out posts and videos that it's a bubble, and then Bitcoin will drop or Ethereum will drop like 10 or 20%, and they're all saying I told you so. These these people just refuse to understand that the world is changing, and they haven't been right in 7 years. Why should we expect them to be right now? And they'll never say that they were wrong about the cryptos, even though we're up thousands of percent from when they were first introduced, and people who shied away from the cryptos, who were listening to other people say no, get out, there's nothing there. If you did your homework, you'll find out there's a lot there. If you didn't do your homework and you listen to it's the alt media, the gold and silver guys mainly are saying no, all this money's going into gold and silver and not into or going into the cryptos and not into gold and silver. That's ridiculous. I mean, you look at the volumes on the COMEX and the LBMA, and the volumes times the dollar amount. I mean, silver on the COMEX trades over 100 billion ounces of physical silver every year, which is, silver is a $5 trillion market, according to Reuters. So, the money is going in there. It's just not being put in the right place. It's going towards derivatives. So, it's crazy to get your head around the cryptos. Cliff High has a new report out just today, which is pretty cool. It's called Hunting Trains.
Ooh, the Hunting Trains.
I know. He always has a good title on these things.
He does, yeah.
And it's a good analogy, too. I mean, he talks about certain types of the new cryptos will be, locomotives, and certain types will be track, and certain types will be fluff, or just the smoke that comes out of the train. And he breaks down a whole bunch of them. So, and the report's only $25. I suggest anybody interested in cryptos, go check it out. It is not not investment advice. That's something he wants to make very clear. This is not investment advice. It's just his research and analysis. It's like everything that we talk about. You guys got to make your own decisions on what you invest in and what you don't invest in. And the cryptos are way, way out in left field. I think they're great. I think they have a lot of potential. Most of them, not most. I take that back. Some of them have a lot of potential. Most of them will probably be gone when the banks crash. So you got to be careful, but it is the future, and the train is pulling away from the station, and you got to get on board.
Well, I've listened to the last couple of reports you put out on your YouTube channel, and there's some very important information that you covered, Bix. In part, specifically what you just stated is that we are witnessing a huge paradigm shift, a huge shift away from traditional dollars, traditional money, into a new evolving system. And you shared that with you, and I think you did a great job. You want to touch base on that a little bit?
Sure. And it's the analogy I like to use is the invention of the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web, I think the white paper came out in 1989, and then it went live in 1990. And when it first came on the scene, everybody's like, who cares about this? It won't take the place of anything. It won't matter to everyday people. And then in the next 10 years, we had entire industries built up, the dot-coms, and and the computer equipment companies. Huge paradigm shift from the past. And obviously, here we are, what is that, 27 years later, and everybody and their mother uses the World Wide Web, and even old grandmas are on their smartphones. This is the same type of thing, except it's the very early days. The blockchain technology will change it'll fix the gigantic problem that we have in the world today, and that gigantic problem is trust and truth and honesty in business dealings. And the bankers have absolutely destroyed that necessary part of society. And this is an amazing tool to fix that and to move forward. And I think that's going to be what really drives these cryptocurrencies and using the blockchain technology, using it to reinvent the way we do business in an honest way. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Think back to the days when the internet was first came out. Everyone was like, "Oh no, that's a fad. The internet's a fad."
Saying that too. I was saying that too. And I was in.
It's the mark of the beast. It's the mark of the beast.
Yeah, I'm so tired of hearing that. I was in the computer industry in the early '90s, and I was dealing with the big mainframes, huge systems that we can do on our phone now, the same computing power. But I was saying, no, this isn't going to change anything. It's just, everybody's making a little money while they can. And I was so wrong. And so I look back at that time, and every time I get afraid of this cryptocurrency stuff and think, well, how will this blockchain technology be implemented? All it takes is some research. And Cliff's reports are great because it gives you an idea of how many new companies are coming on board. Some of them are nothing. I think he calls them fluffers, or not fluffers, something like that, flutters. And the companies that he doesn't like are called, or he thinks will just go away. I'm going to look at it. It's a flutterer is a company that probably won't make it, but a punt is what you do with these cryptocurrencies that are built on nothing, basically, and don't have the right type of kind of startup requirements. And Cliff does a great job of breaking down what kind of company will succeed in this space and what kind of company will struggle. So yeah, I mean, for $25, you can save. You go out for lunch, or you can buy Cliff's report and change your life for the next 20 years.
Oh yeah, Cliff's work is absolutely awesome, and it's Half Past Human, right? Is that his?
Yeah,
his
website. halfpasthuman.com, and this report is called Hunting Trains. This is, I think, the fourth report. Yeah, fourth report in his Bare Naked Wealth series, which he's put out because he knew the insanity would come this summer with the cryptocurrencies. All his data was pointing to that, so he's trying to help guide us through this insanity. And boy, is it ever insane with all these ICOs, initial coin offerings.
Yeah. Hey, real quick before you jump into the ICOs, because I read through the comments as well, and I know you mentioned it as well, that a lot of folks with this, oh, we're tired of hearing about cryptocurrency. We're tired of hearing about blockchain. What about gold and silver? And you made a very valid point in terms of what people are holding post dollar collapse, post dollar loses the world reserve currency status. Can you talk briefly about that? Because I think that was an important message, Bix, for people to hear.
Well, my gold and silver friends, they shouldn't be so angry at the cryptos. They're both fighting the same fight to take out the bad guys, to take out the criminal action. The criminal action in gold and silver is price suppression. It's expressed through the futures and derivatives and commodity and computer rigged derivative market of the COMEX and the LBMA. And in the cryptos, they're fighting the same thing. They're trying to get the corruption out of the system. So as the cryptocurrencies increase in value, you're going to see a lot of that money come flowing into gold and silver, especially physical silver, because these people who are investing in the cryptocurrencies are knowledgeable about the changing paradigm, the changing of the guard. This cryptocurrency stuff completely goes around the centralized form of control that we currently live in. And, even if a little bit of the money in the cryptos starts leaking into physical silver, you're going to see huge changes in that physical silver market. And I'm telling everybody that, when you double your investment in the cryptos, take 10 or 20% of that and go buy physical silver. And that way, slowly but surely, we're going to add the pressure on the gold and silver riggers, basically the U.S. government, headed by Steve Mnuchin, who was the head of computer rigging at Goldman Sachs. So it's very complementary to each other. And at some point in the near future, the banking system is going to collapse for one of 50 different reasons right now. I think the European derivatives have already started to trigger with these collapsing banks and banks getting soaked up and cocoa bonds getting triggered in Europe. I think that is, we're looking at a crazy summer, and all the gold and silver bugs who are hating the cryptos, don't hate. Don't be a hater. Be happy that the cryptos are going crazy, because those people will be buying physical silver as the cryptos get larger and larger. They'll be buying in higher amounts. And the problem isn't a bubble in the cryptos, not at all. It is a bubble in the U.S. dollar and forms of unbacked fiat money. And there is no limit to the amount of creation of those, but there's a limit to the amount of cryptos. There's a soft limit to the amount of gold and silver, but everything will benefit if the cryptos do well. Everything that we're fighting for, the decentralization of all this power and the ultimate destruction of the gold and silver market suppression. So
yeah,
it's exciting.
It's very exciting. It's very exciting. The other thing that you mentioned that I really enjoyed hearing was the aspect that, how many, if you think about it out there, how many of your friends, family, merchants have gold or silver in the event that that's what you're holding? And again, I'm do what's right for you, but in the event that you need to get gold, you need to get silver, where are you going to buy it from? Who are you going to get it from? Versus you have your smartphone, and your smartphone is going to give you that capability of purchasing your cryptocurrency, of doing trade, doing those things, kind of how you mentioned in Venezuela, that those people are kind of dependent upon cryptocurrencies right now to do a lot of their trade.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is the big difference as far as, all the gold and silver bugs. Before Bitcoin was around, that was pretty much the only alternative when the global currency collapsed, would be to go to some kind of gold and silver standard. That's happened over the last 5,000 years. Today is different. With the invention of Bitcoin and the blockchain, it changed everything on that dynamic. Now, gold and silver will still be there, but there's also another alternative that everybody who has a smartphone can participate in, and that is Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. So, I mean, I hate to say bad things about gold and silver, but those people who hold just gold and silver and aren't open to at least looking at the cryptocurrencies, looking at Bitcoin, how it works, why it works so well, are going to be kind of pissed off when the system crashes and it doesn't automatically go back to gold and silver. Gold and silver are tough to use as a currency for transactions. They're large, they're clunky, and if you have a phone with easy access to your cryptocurrency in a decentralized way with no central bank hovering over you, that's going to be a lot easier. So I think gold and silver will do well when the system crashes, but I doubt highly that we'll return to a gold and silver coin standard where people will be walking around with physical coins and buying things with silver dimes and gold, 1 ounce pieces or whatever you got. It might be a little bit of everything is kind of where I'm getting at, because the world did change in 2009 with the publication of the Satoshi white paper.
Right. Oh, I'm right there in terms of that mindset, because I remember forever Bix, I carried a BlackBerry, right? I thought BlackBerry was the
You
greatest
and
thing,
Hillary
right?
Clinton.
I mean, Hillary Clinton, I could email I could type emails faster than anyone else. And I refused, Bix. I refused to get off my BlackBerry. But then I started witnessing these smartphones coming out with the capabilities. They had a wonderful browser. They had all these wonderful apps. And I'm still sitting there on my BlackBerry.
But hey, even my mom is using her smartphone, and the older generation is loving the new technology because it's easy to use, and it wasn't easy to use at the beginning. Obviously, computers were a little difficult to use, but now the ease of use is just they're so easy to use. You don't have to set anything up; you just turn them on and off you go. And the cryptocurrencies will get that way too. As they develop and evolve, they'll be very
Bingo.
to be used, very much more secure than they are today. And yes, Bitcoin will solve its scalability problems, and probably sooner rather than later. So now is a good time to be in Bitcoin.
All right, excellent. Well, let's jump into the cryptocurrency market. So what's up? What's down? What are your thoughts on the markets right now?
Well, I'm a big fan right now. Bitcoin has a lot of really positive things in the near term. Just the other day, India announced that they're going to basically legalize or legitimize Bitcoin by regulating it. Now, a lot of people say, whoa, the Bitcoin hardcore guys say, no, we don't want any regulations in Bitcoin. Well, in truth, I say regulation is a good thing because it means these countries are embracing Bitcoin. They're going to adapt Bitcoin. Regulation is not just bad things happen when regulators come in. Regulators also ward away bad actors. You don't want someone trying to attack your Bitcoin wallet every 2 minutes. You want the regulators to, true regulators, which we haven't had for a long time, to enforce laws and rules around, people who try to steal your Bitcoin, steal your cryptocurrency, just like if people try to steal your gold or steal your silver or steal your US dollars. You want that in that realm because the US government or any government can pass laws that are both pro and con, good things and bad things for the cryptocurrencies. Obviously, at some point, there'll be a lot of laws surrounding the cryptocurrencies. The countries with the best laws will see the most cryptocurrency involvement in action and probably turn out to be the most powerful, richest countries in the world. If Greece went to Bitcoin back when they first, fell down and went begging to the EU, they would be the richest country in the world right now. And I think they know that now. And I think the next time a country like Greece falls down, they will turn to the cryptocurrencies, turn to Bitcoin and say, hey, we've tried and tried again to play in this unbacked fiat money game controlled by the masters in Brussels. It's time to move on. It's time for something new. Yeah, we could go to gold and silver, but that's clunky and it's hard to use and most people don't have any. But hey, everybody's got a smartphone. Let's just use Bitcoin. And off they go.
Bingo. Well said. Well said. Yeah, I mean, in terms of everyone hates regulation until it benefits them. Bix is what it amounts to. Until it saves their ace from something, And in terms of the regulators, I mean, if you think about it, someone could come up with this great scam, right? And say, hey, I'm a Bitcoin exchanger. I'm going to create a website and just send me all your Bitcoin. And, I'm going to sell you this Bitcoin. And these exchanges that can be created could be absolutely a Bernie Madoff scam, a Ponzi scheme. So in essence, those exchanges, there does need to be some level there to monitor and ensure transparency of the legitimacy of a business, right? No one wants to get ripped off in dealing with this. So, again, that's kind of how I look at the regulation part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are tons of Bitcoin scams out there already. And you notice how these new ICOs, the initial coin offerings, they're not even allowed in the United States because a lot of them are just shady. I mean, beyond shady. And even if the company's good, a lot of the big money hedge funds and Goldman Sachs types are in there, knee deep in this stuff, circumventing U.S. law by not doing the ICO with IP addresses in the United States. And this is going on right now. There's two very large ICOs happening right now. One is Status and the other one's Civic. and they were anticipated. I don't think either of them are legal in the United States because they don't comply with FATCA rules and regulations, any regulations practically. ICOs are a way for a company that has invented a cryptocurrency to raise money by selling coins instead of shares of stock. It's kind of like a pre-sale of shares to insiders type of thing. But it's the manipulation that goes on is just stunning and shocking because there is very little regulation around this stuff. So this is a warning to everybody out there. But you can also hit a home run with these things too. But most of these cryptocurrencies, unless you really understand them, I would stay away from them. Stick to the big ones. Stick to Bitcoin and Ethereum, and let the the more crazy money, like the Goldman Sachs's of the world, play with their big gains. Because if you have a lot of money, and they call them whales, if you have a lot of money and the computer expertise and power, and there's not many laws and rules around just taking full command of these ICOs, and it's sad. And the companies are trying to get the coin spread out to more people by working all these angles, but at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is anonymous. So who's to say if Goldman Sachs has 5,000 different Bitcoin wallets that they bid on? You can't tell if it's spread out or it's centralized. So it's kind of crazy out there in the ICO world. But the Bitcoin world is looking good, and the Ethereum world is looking much better. Although there's a lot of slowdown right now, supposedly. These ICOs will say, "Oh, it's Ethereum's fault that things are going so slow; it just can't handle the volume." I'm not so sure about that because they were saying that, and a lot of the exchanges saying, "Yeah, we got 24-hour wait for these transactions to go through," and yet on my Ether wallet right now, I can send out a coin to one of my other wallets, and it happens almost instantaneously. So there's a lot of shiftiness going on in the background. A lot of these exchanges couldn't handle the volume. They say, I would say no. It's more like they're trying to balance their book. They're picking up cheap coins where they can, and they'll put everything on kind of hold until all the hoopla runs down, and then they're sitting pretty. So a lot of shiftiness and craziness going on in the background.
Yeah, I agree. The ICOs, definitely risk, if not high risk in terms of because you have to remember those values could easily go to zero on those ICOs, depending upon their initial offering of their set price. Bix, do you have a favorite website or someone that you like to go to in terms of where the cryptos are currently performing, trends, and all that kind of good stuff that our listeners can follow or learn about?
Not really. I mean, when I want to see just like the prices of all the cryptocurrencies, and right now I go to this website called coinmarketcap.com, and they're listing 762 different cryptocurrencies, which is crazy because most of these are nothing coins. I mean, I could put out a Bix coin today and probably get a few $1 million worth of trades on it. And it'll be nothing. That's the crazy thing. So there's a lot of craziness in the cryptos. Definitely do your homework. Definitely stick to the top 20, I'd say. As far as market cap, those would be safer than the bottom 20. But this is a risky trader's wet dream right now because you got companies that'll go up 300%, and there's a lot of manipulation going on. A lot of manipulation. A company, a hedge fund wants to manipulate one of these coins. They'll just go down to like the coin number 100 on this list and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to slowly load up on it, and then we're going to buy it all and, jack the price up 5,000%, get everybody in, and then we'll dump all our coins and make a lot of money because there's very little regulation on this, and they can do that. So yeah, you gotta be careful. The higher market cap coins, it's harder to do because there's a lot of big money in there already. So if you try a COMEX type of game where you short the crap out of one of these coins to drive the price down, you got big players that are ready to swoop in. So they're more of a real market. Whereas down further in the list there, the farther down you go, the more shady it becomes.
Yeah, and in terms of the regulation, step back for a moment. You hear a lot, Bix. Oh, the government's going to regulate Bitcoin. They're going to shut it off. The cryptocurrencies. They're going to make it impossible to hold. I mean, do you want to speak to that for a minute, as far as why the blockchain, why decentralizing the internet kind of takes a little bit of that control away from the feds, from the government?
Well, it does on a national basis. Like if the United States outlawed Bitcoin would go other places. There's a lot of different countries in the world, but I don't think at all that the United States is even thinking about it. I think they're doing exactly the opposite. I think they're going to, because I do have my road to Ruta theory shows that there are people working to take down the bad guys that control our lives, and this is from the Fed Boston comic books. I've outlined it a zillion times, but the fight between the good guys and the bad guys is raging behind the scenes right now. So I do believe the United States will return to a place where the rule of law and our Constitution take precedent over any criminal banking activity. And the criminal banking activity is absolutely helped by the laws that the Congress puts in. A lot of the congressmen will be gone when the swamp is drained in the U.S. In the House of Representatives and in the Senate. I think maybe a third will be gone, because there's a lot of hidden things that will be showing up very soon, and I'm excited about that. But one of the key things will be returning to the Constitution, and in the Constitution, it protects things like cryptocurrencies. It's a good thing for America to move away from the current unbacked fiat monetary system that was implemented in 1913. It's a good thing to get the hell away from it, far away. And they have devalued our currency 99+%. And it is time to shut that chapter in the life of America. Can turn great again. Literally what Donald Trump said, it can turn great again overnight if they just told the truth. If our government told us the truth about everything, not just how the criminal bankers steal our money and how inflation is a absolute tax on everybody in the United States, but tell the truth on everything from who killed Kennedy to what are those ships flying around in the middle of the night that I see in the sky. There needs to be a lot of truth told, and when that is done, we can go back to our Constitution. And in our Constitution, it would love gold, it would love silver, it would love the cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrencies is a way to foment a smooth transition out of the old system into something new. And I think that's what Congress, the people who control Congress now, the good guys as I call them, I think that's what they're trying to do is make a smoother landing between all the banks shutting down and instituting martial law versus the banks slowly shutting down and leaning more toward the cryptocurrencies until everybody has a Bitcoin wallet on their cell phone, and then it'll be a lot easier to destroy the banks and to end that game and to go on to something new.
Yeah, I think there was a real minor attempt. I think those initial the hacking groups where they placed those viruses in computers that were XP and older, where they were demanding Bitcoin as payment. I think there was a little bit of an attempt to introduce legislation. I believe it was combating money, terrorist financing.
That new law. They claim, we're going to check your cryptocurrency wallet before you leave the country. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It goes back to the same regulations that they did with cash a long time ago, right? I mean,
well, you can have a million different wallets. I mean, here's my wallet. Look, I have nothing in here. Leave me alone. And you could have a million wallets at home or on a different platform. The whole concept of trying to do that is completely impossible to enforce a law like that. And those who say, they'll just take all your cryptocurrency because they're going to know when you leave the country, they'll know exactly what you have. That's ridiculous. Show them a blank wallet and say, this is my wallet. if something that draconian comes into play, which I don't think it will. I think they put it there for a reason, and that reason was to slow down the rise in the cryptocurrencies, which is exactly what it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they don't want it running away from them before they can get other things fixed. And those other things have to do with, taking down the bad guys, getting certain people in different places within the U.S. government. And I think it's a waste of time, because I think a total destruction of the monetary system has to happen to get the illicit funds out of the hands of the bad guys. And they own most of that. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump to North Korea. What's going on with North Korea? What are your thoughts there?
I don't know. Truthfully, there's that ship, that naval, what was it, a destroyer, or the U.S. ship that supposedly ran into another ship and all those sailors died?
Yes, the USS. I can't remember what the name of it. Yeah, so a freight an ocean freightliner was carrying cargo, and apparently
Fitzgerald.
Huh?
It's the Fitzgerald, right?
Fitzgerald, yes, the Fitzgerald, yes. They're claiming that was an accident. I thought perhaps maybe it was a setup. Maybe that was a false flag event that they were trying to utilize to usher something in.
Yeah, it is clearly something other than what they're saying. And, was it a missile from North Korea? Possibly. Would the U.S., because all of a sudden there's a lot of action in North Korea. North Korea is saying now that they're talking about de-escalating. I read that this morning on Zero Hedge, that North Korea is now saying that they're not going to run any more tests, or they might not run any more tests on their missiles. I think something happened, and most likely Trump told them, "This is it. We're going to blow the crap out of you. You will end as a nation unless you change." And I would assume, now this is conspiracy talk, if North Korea fired a missile or did something to blow up that U.S. ship, rammed a boat into it, that U.S. aircraft carrier, whatever it was, that Trump would not take that lightly. And things would change as far as, you can't tell the world that North Korea managed to blow up a U.S. naval ship. But you can say, it was an accident and a random freightliner rammed into the ship, which is impossible to do, by the way, on both sides, from the freightliner's point of view and the U.S. Military ship. It can't happen.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And if you look at the timing of when that happened this past weekend, leading right into, was it Otto Warmbier, the American imprisoned student that was released, and the entire media was like, everyone's feeding, all social feeds, oh, this poor student was, returned in a coma and he died, and America cannot accept. So I truly believe that they were trying to, the deep state is so desperate for some type of escalation, whether it's in Syria or North Korea. It's kind of like they're right now throwing everything at the wall, Bix, and hoping something sticks.
It could be, and North Korea is kind of the last stronghold of the deep state as far as the bad guys. And I've heard it's the Bush clan and the Rothschilds that control North Korea. But I mean, clearly the U.S. vessel, it's not the story. It's not the correct story. They weren't run into by a commercial ship. It can't happen. It's
right.
It's GPS. There's warning signals. There's everything that it won't even. It's just ridiculous to even claim that.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think you're absolutely right. There is no appetite for escalation in North Korea. I mean, hell, the South Koreans don't even want the U.S. in the peninsula anymore. They want us out. They were rejecting the THAAD missile system. There's no appetite on the South Korean side for an escalation with North Korea. I think China's influence, perhaps the Trump administration influence, said, listen, there isn't going to be a war, North and South war. That's not going to happen. I think that they're putting plans in place for possibly unifying North and South Korea in the future.
It's possible. I mean, I think anything's possible, but I think what's really going on is the stuff behind the scenes, the stuff that we're not going to hear about, and that's the battle between the good guys and the bad guys. And then it'll play out in North Korea where, all of a sudden peace is declared or whatever if the good guys win.
Well, yeah, and that ship that supposedly rammed into what was it, the USS Fitzgerald, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, its docking information where it came from was out of the Philippines, I believe, which is very interesting, Bix, because that brings about the recent events, what occurred with Duterte and his disagreement with the United States, that they were starting there to pivot, to reject some of the United States things that were occurring there in the Philippines, and then boom, all of a sudden ISIS shows up in the Philippines, and Duterte had to squash that, rejected U.S. assistance from them, and then all of a sudden this freight thing crashed into there. So yeah, who knows what happened, but hopefully we'll find out the truth.
I haven't seen any pictures of the vessel that ran into I've seen the U.S. ship pictures. It looks just crunched. I haven't seen any pictures of the other ship.
It didn't have much damage to it. I'll send you a link later on, but it didn't have a whole lot of damage. And this thing was massive. The amount of weight that it was carrying was like three or four times the weight. A container ship, yeah. It was like 3 or 4 times the weight of the U.S. battleship. There was, and the damage that it caused. This thing they don't even know if they'll be able to repair it. It's going to be out of commission for at least a year. But you're right. Apparently, this cargo ship apparently had turned off its beacon and turned off its lights, its running lights, everything else. It occurred at 2 a.m. So either from the American side, either this was complete incompetence of and we hope that's not the case, that somebody wasn't looking at radar to say, hey, by the way, there's something that's like massive that's coming right at us, right? This thing was not an accident.
No, it couldn't be an accident. So yeah, is it a terrorist attack? Is it North Korea? Is it who knows? But the North Korea thing, I did read this morning that there's some kind of de-escalation going on all of a sudden after the guy died, and then this accident, at least near North Korea. So yeah, I who knows? But behind the scenes, a lot more is going on than what we're told.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound not sensitive around this U.S. student, but it just irks me when you hear this public outcry in the MSM talking about this political prisoner. And the thing that irritates me is that the United States, we have our own political prisoners that no one wants to talk about. We had Erwin Schiff, locked up, the man that died of cancer in a jail cell because of his taxation as theft. Whole thing. So I don't want to go off on a big tangent around that, but the United States, we're not innocent ourselves when it comes to political prisoners.
but they'll use the visibility of this one to, use it for their agenda.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about Mr. John Podesta. So what's going on with Podesta in the investigation?
There's a lot of rumors that Podesta is actually under investigation. Now, it's by Mueller. It doesn't matter. Mueller's a bad guy, and how he is not removing himself for conflict of interest with the investigation of Trump and all that. I don't know how that gets by, but the rumors that John Podesta is being investigated is incredibly interesting, because I've heard it from a few different sources, and it's not hard to find enough dirt on John Podesta to put him away for many lifetimes, and his brother Tony, and everybody involved with what was going on in DC with the Petigate stuff and the election rigging, and there's just so much information there that these guys have to be put away for life. And the rumors that they are being investigated is extremely interesting, because that will send a shiver down the spine of half of the Democratic Party who was involved in the criminality there. I love it. I think if it is announced that It is being investigated, and there is a real investigator, a real. It's not a scam type of investigation. It's a real deal. That would pull the plug on draining the swamp, because it would implicate so many others within Washington.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and I've kind of heard the same chatter that's out there right now, and even if you throw the entire, Pizzagate thing aside, and yes, we know that he was involved in spirit cooking, and who knows what else is involved there, but just alone for the fact, Bix, that him and his brother were paid lobbyists for the Russians.
Oh yeah,
like leading up to literally months, and even continued into the election cycle, and this was undeclared.
Yeah.
So they lobbied for millions of dollars of U.S. money of Russian interest, which is just in complete violation of about every election law. And so, if that's true,
there's also the Clinton Global Initiative. They were knee deep in that too, and the money laundering that was going on there. I mean, there's just so much. If you're going to investigate someone and you want to get to the heart of the scumminess in Washington, you really want to drain the swamp, that's your guy, John Podesta. Yeah,
I think it's going to get there. Now, you did hear that the State Department reopened an investigation into Hillary Clinton, didn't you?
I didn't hear it, but it depends who. If it's Mueller, it is kind of a mute.
Well, yeah, I'll have to go back and read it a little bit more in detail, but apparently it just craziness that Hillary and Uma, that they still have top secret clearance, that they still have security clearance. They do. They still have security clearance. Why in the world, with everything that they have done and been under investigation, would they still have security clearance? So this is kind of going back.
Stop that now?
Well, they're going back, and that's why the State Department is doing this. They're going back to take a look at her use of her email, which they already know. I think this is just a formality of reviewing it, so that for they can go on the record to actually revoke her security clearance. I think that's why they're doing this.
Well, don't forget, we got the Uma Abedin laptop, Anthony Weiner laptop, with 650,000 documents. Now, these are emails, videos, phone conversations, you name it, it's on there, enough to bust a third of Washington type of thing. And that has not been closed. That is still active. And there's enough people within the Trump administration to say, oh my God, yes, we're looking at a constitutional crisis if this stuff gets out. But at the same time, if you're going to drain the swamp, there's no better way than to tell the truth about that stuff. And if WikiLeaks has it, the CIA has every single electronic document in the world. They have the ability to release this information and destroy the system. The question is, will they do it? And if they do it, how will they do it?
Right, and yes, and the timing is right for it. I completely agree. It's time to drain the swamp. It's just crazy to think that the Obama records from the unmasking that occurred with Donald Trump, that those records have been moved, Bix. Those records have been moved to the Obama library. That's not going to even be completed until 2022.
And why is that even legal? Why I didn't know that you can remove government records completely from the possession of the government to a ex-president's library and secure it for 5 years so no one can see it. Something sounds not so correct about that.
You know what I think it is? I think it's the system protecting itself. I think that from the years of corruption under every administration that's existed in the United States, that they've put all these laws in place to protect each other, that they know that they can utilize in the event. But there's still ways of obtaining these records. I mean, they could.
But they're being changed right now is the problem. If they're in the hands of, of Obama's library. The people in charge of that, they're being changed. They're being altered, and you could say those records are pretty much gone.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, and why they're allowed to move. You'd think that the State Department, prior to these records would be removed, to say, well, wait a minute, were they being secured? Were they being stored The library hasn't even broke ground yet. Of course, he's putting it in Chicago, which we can talk about Illinois if you want in their financial situation.
But even the concept of having, these are the only documents there are, and they're being removed from the U.S. federal government and moved to a private library of an ex-president. I mean, that can't be true. They didn't get copies. They're not securing copies of anything. Oh, here, since you're leaving the Oval Office, take everything with you so that we don't know anything. Well,
that's the information Judicial Watch got back. They had submitted. Yeah. So again, time will tell, but hopefully, you're right. They probably have already changed those records to reflect something different. Just amazing that those laws exist, if they do.
See, I don't even think there is a law like that. It wouldn't make sense at all. But hey, it's our federal government. Who knows?
Absolutely. All right. Anything else, Bix, you want to talk about today? Anything else on your radar?
Just keep an eye out this summer for Trump pulling that plug on the Anthony Weiner, Uma Abedin laptop, and so much stuff in there that the people need to know. And it's the only way I think that we can avoid a civil war, is for both sides to see what actually was going on. And yeah, and that's it. Other than that, go to roadtoruta.com, and if you sign up to get the free emails, you get a free book too, called Silver, Gold, Bitcoin, and God. What a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, check it out. And then also make sure you visit roguemoney.net. Again, there's some great articles that are up there today. Follow us on Twitter. Been active on our Steemit account, so check out our Steemit account as well. And that's it for another Hump Day with Bix. So this is CJ, and V will return next week for the Hump Day. So we are over and out.